Embattled Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko met with Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin today in an effort to secure loans and political support. This is the first time the two are meeting since protests broke out across Belarus following last month's presidential elections. Lukashenko is being accused of rigging the election. He claims his victory is legitimate. Yesterday, more than 150,000 people took to the streets again in the Belarus capital of Minsk, demanding Lukashenko resign. To talk more about this is CBS News foreign correspondent Chris Livesay. He joins us from Rome. Chris, thanks so much for being with us. So, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced he agreed to a $1.5 billion loan to Belarus. What are the stipulations behind this loan, and how is it part of the bigger picture?
That's right, Tanya. That's a big check to be writing to Belarus. However, we don't know exactly what was stipulated because this was a closed-door, one-on-one meeting between Vladimir Putin and his Belarusian counterpart. One thing we do know, however, is that Lukashenko needs Putin right now more than ever. These protests have been going on for well over a month, ever since Lukashenko claimed to have won that election in a landslide, something that the tens and sometimes hundreds of thousands of protesters simply have not been able to stomach. And that's despite the fact that he's been lashing out at them violently. He's beaten them, he's bludgeoned them. People have even died from the injuries they've sustained at the hands of riot police. He's also been snatching people off the streets, people wearing ski masks and pulling up beside protesters in vans and just throwing them inside. It's all been very ominous, and you would think that it would have a scare effect on protesters, but instead it's had the opposite effect. It's been backfiring week after week. And so Lukashenko needs to try and put an end to this, and Putin is his backstop.
So, Putin also mentioned that Lukashenko presented a proposal for constitutional reform. Can you tell us about this and the kind of support Russia plans to give? Is this an attempt to, hand out some kind of olive leaf or olive branch, rather, to the protesters?
Well, it's something we've been hearing from Lukashenko for weeks now. He's gone on television as these protests continued to spiral deeper into chaos and tried to pacify them by saying he was open to things like sharing power and, changing the Constitution to enable more freedoms down the road. But he was always speaking in these very vague, nebulous terms. And then oftentimes he would contradict himself in further statements or interviews. So people of Belarus have found it very hard to believe these statements in the past, and they don't show any signs of believing them now that he's said the same thing to Putin. In terms of what Putin might offer or what Russia might offer, the question is it more security forces? Putin has already vowed to send Russian security forces across the border into Belarus if the situation continues to deteriorate. So the question on everyone's mind is, well, how many security forces will that be? And will they stick around as they did in places like Georgia and Ukraine, other former Soviet states in the immediate orbit of Putin, when they had their own political upheavals and took advantage there? Will he do it again now in Belarus?
Absolutely. So, with that in mind, what is Russia getting out of this meeting? Why would Putin want to dip his toe into such a volatile situation? And what is the opposition saying about this meeting?
Well, as much as Lukashenko needs Putin, Putin also needs Lukashenko. Even though they've had a sort of up and down relationship over the past year, he knows that Lukashenko is the only thing that stands between him right now and NATO and the European Union. Just on the other side of Belarus, you have countries like Lithuania and Poland, which represent the West to Vladimir Putin. And he's felt extremely alienated by the West as of late, specifically after the alleged poisoning of Alexei Navalny, the Russian dissident who was flown to Berlin and in order to receive treatment, barely survived. And, Putin received just an enormous amount of backlash from the West, from the United States, from the European Union, from the United Nations, condemning those actions. Now, of course, Putin and Russia have denied any involvement in that poisoning, but nonetheless, he's felt very alone. So this meeting was an opportunity for him to shore up support from an old ally.
All right, well, Chris Livesay, thank you.